Our last ISO rating stated that we were approximately 18 million, shy of where we needed to be to keep our ISO rating. So those are the things that I'd like to focus on. As all of us, I mean, we've all talked about this. I mean, we all want it, but there again, we go back to how we're going to pay for it. But those are the things that I'd like to see as well, get everything get going, get some revenue coming in, get Waldron Road wide, and pray that we'll have other businesses coming in here so we can, all of us have our little special things that we are interested in. And as a group, I think we're all interested in everything as a whole. But those are some of the things that I'd like to see once we get the money flowing. So
I would say if I were in Laverne and I saw what happened with Sam Ridley Parkway, just like Mike mentioned, and the growth and the explosion of retail there, and then you just transfer that a few miles up the road to Waldron Road, how much of an impact that would have on this community. It would change everything.
Everything. I think everything. It even changed Jerry and I's opinion on each other. No, I'm just kidding.
No, they still won't like him, right?
We're known to be the ones that argue a lot to point, but we have a good time.
That's good.
Let me ask real quick. We talked about low tax rate, and I'm not trying to sound like a pessimist or anything, but you mentioned the police, and if you've got that problem where you're seeing turnover, when they're leaving, they're going to the sheriff's department, going to city marshal court, maybe they're going to smaller Madison County, and that cost of retraining and that risk that you take, maybe potential lawsuits or whatever happens, maybe that guy, maybe something comes up because of his training or something. But do you think if a poll was taken in Laverne, because my dad lived in Laverne for 35 years, never once a year complained about taxes,
Right.
not the city of Laverne taxes, and I don't think he'd mind paying taxes. I think he just didn't want to pay an exorbitant amount. I think people that come from taxes, as long as they see a return on their investment, I don't think they have a problem with paying taxes. So, do you think that if you polled most people in Laverne, would they argue that they're paying too much?
Oh, I don't think so at all. I don't think you'd hear anybody say I'm paying too much.
Because it's important. You talked about police and fire. You talked about building schools. Doug and I know, being on county commission. I mean, I'm always going to try to argue against taxes, but I think as a taxpayer, if I see the spending and I know that the money is being spent in a wise manner, I don't have a problem with paying taxes. What I hate is when we see waste and so forth, and I think most people would feel the same way. But to me, I don't think. I mean, y'all have one of the lowest. I mean, probably in the state of Tennessee, lowest tax rates. And it just seems. I'm not trying to sound pro-tax, but no, it just seems like that's something that really needs to be looked at. I mean, and I know y'all probably have to bite the bullet one day, and it's not going to be popular. But I think it'd be neat to have a poll out there, just see how the residents feel about this. If it's going to improve your quality of life and you're going to get these services, do you mind paying an extra $40 a year and see what people? I think it would be neat. If Angie maybe, D&J may put a poll out there just to kind of see.
I personally think that if they knew exactly where that money was going, I don't think you'd have a problem.
Yeah.
This is what I hear, and I think all of us have heard the same thing. Laverne is not spending the money wisely on different lawsuits and all that. I mean, it's been in the paper. I mean, it's nothing that we can hide. But there's been some lawsuits that I think all of us, if we'd sit down and look at it, could have been prevented.
And I think
it's those type of things.
But that can happen
Yeah.
whether it's county or any city. You're going to have that, especially in a frivolous society that we.
And I think
have.
once they see that we're trying to clean up some of the departments that may be some issues there, I think then you're going to have an easier time selling the fact of going up on taxes. I mean, what is it? Spring Hill went from no taxes to, was it 60, 65 cents? From nothing to that.
You know when they voted in.
Yes.
No taxes, yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's something like we're at 50 cents now. But I think once we make that decision, we're going to have to prove, if that decision is made in this group's, time, we're going to have to sit down and prove like the county does. You give so many cents to the schools, you give so many cents to to the sheriff's department, and on and on and on and on. So you're showing where each penny goes to. And I think that's something, in my opinion, that this board is gonna have to sit down and show that this is where it is going, hands down, no questions asked. This is where you're gonna see your money going.
You know, I think, to me, people don't know that 50 cents, or the majority, I would think, don't know that 50 cents goes to the, you know, that's the city's portion, and you know, the county gets a portion of the money, and it's just the amount that I spend on my house note just went up, you know, and I think that's the bottom dollar. You know, I don't think people know when they spend $1 that, 9 cents or whatever, how that's divvied up between the county and the city. That Smyrna gets a portion of that sales tax dollar if it's in Smyrna, but if you live in Laverne and you shop locally in Laverne, that part of that tax dollar stays here. I don't think people really understand that, and I don't know if there should be an awareness campaign or what.
You know, I'm glad you said that, because in all fairness, until I became an elected official, you know, you've always heard shop in your hometown.
Sure.
You know, eat in your hometown. And, you know, you're always kind of like, well, okay, but, you know, I want to go over here and eat because I like that. And until I became an elected official, you can ask my husband, you know, when we go to eat, what do you want to eat? Well, it's got to be in the garden. You know, no offense to Smyrna, but, you know, I never really and truly really sat down and thought about that until it was on my plate to decide how we were going to fund the police and the fire and the Parks and Rec, and, you know, everything that we wanted. And it did not really sink in until I sat down with that in front of me and realized, hey, you know, we got to shop with her.
Sure.
You know, one person I'll compliment, that's Harry Gill. He mentioned that teachers, I think he got a little bit of heat over it, but I agree with him. You know, encourage, because what irritates me is people that, especially when they work for the government, and then they're shopping at Cool Springs and going to the problem. So it's vitally important, as Commissioner Schaefer knows.
Doug, you want to follow up there with what Zena was talking about?
Yes, I do, especially on the sales tax. 50% of the sales tax collected on a local option in the county or the cities goes to the school system. Be it that 50% of that 50%, 16% of it goes to the city of Murfreesboro for their school system because they pay county taxes. The rest goes to the entity in which it was spent. So the more retail you have, the more the more sales tax is going to come into your local community.
Which is the reason you need that expansion on Waldron to bring in more retail. Right?
Yeah, and if you look at the county has Rutherford County, what's outside of the 3 municipalities, has very little sales tax because there's not many avenues or the mall like over here in Smyrna and that type thing. Rather, the eating establishments are not where there isn't any city.
Most of the time when some retail comes into the county, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, so Laverne can't annex no more. At least Smyrna and Murfreesboro, they'll annex it. And, you know, when development gets out to the county's edge, then they develop, they annex it, and that takes the county out of the tax dollars.
Which is why you have to go to the property taxes, which is the vicious circle that we all talked about, I guess, a few minutes ago.
Well, I think anytime you can attract commercial development, it's only wise. And that's, you know, one thing that I've been asking Smyrna to look at is our senior development. You know, we've got more seniors living longer. We finally had our first private development that come through that's strictly seniors. And it's kind of a little bit of upscale, you know, medium to upscale, which is nothing but smart, you know.
Alderman Green has pushed for that here in Laverne for quite some time.
Because those folks, they're going to travel to Franklin, they're going to travel to Murfreesboro, whoever's doing it. It's not impact your infrastructure and your school system.
We're overdue for a break here, so let's take a time out here. When we come back, we'll continue. We talk about issues facing North Rutherford County, and we haven't talked to Dennis Waldron yet. Laverne Alderman and Vice Mayor Jerry Gann also here with us, and I want to make sure we get them in on the conversation. But first, Mike, we want to talk about one of the newest sponsors here on the program. I'll let you do the honors here.
Yeah,